Sometimes we can say there are some parts of gratitude that do not really have to do with people around us. It could be the things around us, the benefits that we have received in general, the fortunate circumstances that we are in. This is also a form of gratitude. In Buddhism, we might call this being aware of the merits that you have received, which comes from the good deeds that we have done in the past. Another part of this gratitude is, of course, the people around us, what other people have done, the benefits that other people have done to us, the favors that people have done. To be aware of that. It turned out that the group that wrote these diaries was, of course, then compared with a control group. And this control group didn't write anything. They just continued their normal life. It turned out that the group who wrote the gratitude diaries actually had more encouragement, more inspiration, more courage in life. They felt more alert, were able to deal with problems better, and they had better health as a result as well. They had, if they set certain goals in life, of things they wanted to attain in life, they had more encouragement to accomplish these goals. More than the group that didn't write anything. They didn't develop their awareness about gratitude. Emmons even went so far as to compare this group who wrote the gratitude diaries with another group that just compared themselves with others in a downward way. That means what you might call downward comparison. So, for example, I'm rich but you are poor. I'm smart but you are not smart. I graduated at Harvard. I didn't, but for example. And you didn't graduate at Harvard or something like that. And there would be one group of people writing these kind of things, which is not really gratitude. It's just comparing yourself with others. Trying to might also be motivated by some arrogance or a motivation that is not very positive. And this group, some people might say this group is also looking at the world from a positive perspective, trying to, boost their ego or something like that. But actually, this group didn't encounter the same benefits. This group actually wasn't experiencing all the benefits that the group who wrote the diaries of gratitude experienced. So the people who wrote about their experiences of gratitude, oh, this person has given me a lot, that person has helped me a lot, I have received many benefits in my life. They had a lot more, they gained a lot more from that experience of writing a diary than the group that just write a diary to boost their ego. In other words, just the habit of being aware of what people do to us in terms of the benefits that we have received, the small favors that people have done to us, all of these things, to just be aware of that already has a great impact on our lives. So that the people in the past said, count your blessings, was actually a very good advice. Sometimes we find it difficult to count our blessings. We feel that when we are faced with obstacles, with problems in life, that we tend to look at things negatively, complaining about this, about that. Sometimes it's not like we think negative, but it's just like we like to complain. So our thoughts become negative as a result. Whenever we meet some people, we just feel that this or that person is the sort of person I'd like to complain with. I like to vent my feelings. So this is something that we might feel we are used to. So when someone says, count your blessings, you feel that's kind of something that is very far-fetched or something you cannot get connected with. But actually this is some practice. Many things in life, virtues, strengths of character, are all habits. Not just many, all of them, in fact. When you think regularly in a certain way, until it becomes a habit, that becomes our character. When it becomes our character, it starts to determine our lives. Our habits are so important that every single deed that we do and that we do and affirm our habits is very valuable. The Buddha, he said that every small deed that we do is very valuable. Every small good deed. And he compared it with a big water jar, big jar of water. Even though when it rains, just only one drop of rain falls in it every time. It's all those drops of rain that slowly fill up this jar. When it rains, it's not like it's raining and it's coming down like it's pouring down like that, like a big flood of water or something like that. When it rains, normally it just rains one drop at a time. But when it rains for a long time, the jar of water will be filled. The same way, when we do good every day, step by step, starting with the small things in life, then we can change our thoughts. So the way we shape our lives is very much determined on the way we shape our thoughts. There is a well-known story about this from the Tipitaka, or the Buddhist scriptures. One monk was called Puna. And Puna was a monk that he wanted to go back to his home country, which was far away from where he was living now. Well, it was a certain distance. And he felt that he would like to go back to his home country. But before he went back, according to tradition, he took his leave and went to see the Buddha to take his leave. So he went to see the Buddha, and the Buddha asked him, "Are you ready? Are you ready to go back there?" The Buddha asked him about that, because the country where he was staying, where he was going back to, was very cruel. The people there were very fierce. Sometimes they would kill people. Sometimes some monks would be abused by the people there. So living with such cruel and fierce people would be difficult. But Puna wanted to go back to his home country. It's difficult to really determine very clearly what his purpose was, but it may be that he wanted to do something back for his home country, because it was a lot more comfortable to meditate in the place that he was staying, and yet he wanted to go back to his home country. So he then asked the Buddha to go. And the Buddha asked him, "Are you ready?" And he asked him the very simple question: if you go back to your home country, what if they abuse you? What if they revile you? What will you do? And he said, "Oh, that's okay. Because if they abuse me, at least they haven't hit me with the fist yet. They haven't hit me yet. Haven't given me any blow with the fist yet." And the Buddha said, "Well, but if they blow you, then if they hit you with their fists, what will you do?" well, if that happens, he said, I will think that it's okay, because at least they haven't hit me with a clod yet. What if they hit you with a clod? Well, at least they haven't hit me with a rod yet. What if they hit you with a rod? Very cruel. They hit you with rods, and you might get hurt a lot. That's okay, because I still am alive. Still alive. At least they haven't hit me. They haven't cut me down with a knife yet. But what if they start to cut you with knives, to pierce you with knives? Maybe the knives are not that sharp. But if they are sharp knives, what will you do? You might not survive. And Puna said to the Buddha, oh, but if they pierce me with their knives, I will not survive. Then I will think that some people, they like to commit suicide. They look for someone to help them commit suicide all their lives. But I don't have to look for anyone. So from the perspective of someone wanting to commit suicide, I'm not that bad off. Actually, he didn't want to commit suicide, of course, but he just looked at it from the positive perspective. When the Buddha heard these answers, he said, okay, Puna, you can go. I have nothing more to ask. So Puna went back to his own country. And when he went back, he was very successful in both his duties as a monk and his duties as a teacher. As a teacher, which usually go hand in hand with the personal duties as a monk. So he managed to attain the Dhamma and became an Arahat, enlightened one. At the same time, he was able to teach many people there and to set up Buddhism in his home country. At a certain point, he built a big hut for the Buddha. Well, we don't know if it's big, but it was very nice, very beautiful. And he sent a flower to the Buddha to let him know that he built a hut for him. So he was like this. He always looked at the positive side. In the most difficult circumstances, when his life was threatened all the time, he would always look at the positive side. So we can train ourselves like this as well. Every day that we practice to look at the positive side, this becomes a habit that we can slowly accumulate. Suppose we are sitting for meditation and we feel some pain in our knees, we can think that, well, at least I still have legs. If I have pain in my knees, that means my legs are still working. It's better than not having any legs at all, right? But if you feel ill when you're meditating, you might think that, well, when you are ill, then that means you have to take good care of your illness. By meditating, you can bring more balance into your meditation, into more balance between your body and mind. So it's good to meditate when you are ill. In this way, we can always find a good reason to do good. And we can look at those things, those benefits that we have received, even when they are very little, that the people of old said, count your blessings. The Buddha told the story to the monks in the time of ancient India. This story is also known as the story of the Iraka leaf. There was a long time ago, there was one monk who practiced himself in meditation. And as he was sitting in a boat one day, this monk was sitting in his boat. He grabbed onto a certain branch of a tree, and he grabbed onto a leaf, and the leaf broke off. The leaf broke off. But in those days, it was common for monks that there was a precept for monks that they shouldn't hurt plants. They shouldn't damage any plants. Which is still today, for monks, it's actually officially, according to the monastic discipline, it's not allowed for monks to damage any plants. But in ancient India, this was a very serious precept because many people believed that the plants had spirits in them. In the present day, this is a belief that is not so strong anymore. So when he had broken off one of the leaves, he felt he had made a mistake. And he felt that by tradition, normally a monk should confess his mistakes, that he had made the infringements against the monastic discipline that he had made, that he broke the monastic discipline. But because he lived, most of the time he lived alone, as a sort of hermit. Most of the time, therefore, he didn't meet any other people, and he couldn't confess it to anyone according to the monastic tradition. Because monks usually confess to each other. So then he thought to himself all the time, oh, I broke off this leaf. Oh, I really did something bad. Sometimes he wouldn't think of it, but just a moment before he was to pass away, before he died, he thought of it. Actually, he had been meditating all his life, but he just was worried and concerned still about this leaf that he broke off, that he broke. And then when he thought about that, the image of the thing that he had done wrong appeared to his mind just before he died. And he then was born as a Naga, was reborn as a Naga. This story may, for some of the viewers that have not watched many programs yet, you might feel it's a bit far-fetched. But we can try to learn about the gist of this story. So in this particular story, he was reborn as a Naga. And when he was reborn as a Naga is comparable with dragon in Western legends. It's a very large kind of snake-like being. And for monks, it was considered something very low to be reborn as a Naga. Also, a Naga will live for a long time, for a very long time. And during that time, it's difficult to do good because a Naga usually, his entire lifestyle, his entire way of living, it doesn't have many opportunities to do good, to be generous, or to meditate. How do you meditate when you have the shape of a dragon? So it was all rather more difficult. So he regretted his actions. He had regret. Maybe he had a little bit too much regret in his life. But the point of the story is to saying what happened next. The way he then decided to solve this problem was that he had his daughter. He had a daughter. He had his daughter take on the shape of a human and to dance above the water surface because he was living under the water. And as she was dancing, she would be singing this song, which was like a riddle. And this song said, "What manner of ruler is a king? What manner of king is under the dominion of craving? How may he free himself from the bondage of craving. And why is he called a fool? This was the widow that she sung. And because she was very beautiful, many men that came all over the world, came from all over the world, tried to give answers to this widow so they could win this woman. They could get this woman, get obtain this woman. But no one answered successfully. Many people would come every day to answer this widow. And one of them was called Uttara. And this was already in the time of the current Buddha. That is the Buddha that we know of. And Uttara was walking there. And as he was walking there to answer this riddle, he walked and he came across the Buddha. He met the Buddha, and the Buddha said, "Uttara, where are you going?" And he then said, how are you going to answer this riddle? And Uttara has his own answer, but the Buddha said, "No, this is not the answer. You should answer in this way. The answer is this. He who is the master of the 6 doors of the senses, 6 doors of the body." So we are normally perceiving this world through our sight, through our hearing, through our scent, through our touch, through our tactile sensations, through when we taste something. And what is the 6th sense then? The 6th sense in this context means that we also experience the world through our thoughts. Once we have contemplated things, we also have thoughts. All of these things stir up the mind. They make the mind go away from the center of the body, make the mind less still. So he then said, the answer to this is, who is the real king? What manner of a ruler is a king? He who is the master of the 6 doors of the body, in other words, the master of the senses, is not taken away by the senses, but can maintain his mind at the center of the body. That is what he really called a king. He who takes delight in them, who takes delight in the senses, is not the king. But the one who is free from craving is the king. Who takes not delight in them is free from craving. Who does take delight in them is called a fool. So he very clearly said that the person who managed to train the mind to stay within, rather to be wandering outside all the time, to be present-minded rather than to be absent-minded, to live with awareness and mindfulness rather than to be absent-minded. That is what he called the king. So then Uttara answered this verse he was going to answer this riddle. But the moment that he just tried to memorize these words, they suddenly came to his heart. He suddenly realized these words, how the importance of these words. And he started to try it himself. We should bring the mind within, should not be led by the senses. And at that moment he attained the first stage of enlightenment, which we call stream entry. And then he went to see the daughter of the Naga king. But at this moment he was no longer interested in the daughter, because he had already managed to train his mind to practice his mind to stay within rather than to be wandering outside. But he wanted to let everyone know about the answer to this riddle. So he answered as the Buddha recommended. And then the daughter of the Naga king, of the Naga, responded with another question. By what is a fool taken along? And how does a wise man shake himself free? How does he attain nirvana or nibbana? Answer me this question. And then he answered again, according to the advice of the Buddha. By the flood of craving is the fool taken along, and by faith or by devotion the wise man shakes them off. He that has freed himself from all the attachments is said to have attained nirvana. And as soon as he gave that answer, and the one who was also listening to this answer was Naga, was the father Naga, who was hiding under the water, under the surface of the water. And as soon as he heard these words, he was very delighted and happy, because that meant that the Buddha had already been born. These words must have come from the Buddha. And he was waiting for the Buddha to arise in this world, because he had been a Naga for many ages, and now he had finally come to the age that there was a Buddha alive. So he suddenly jumped out of the water. Everyone was, of course, completely terrified, but we can only imagine the way people reacted. And many people were swept aside by the water that was going in all directions. And this Naga came to see the Buddha, and he said to the Buddha, you know, I have been like this. I was born in this state, in this condition, because I regretted to have taken a single leaf, and I regretted that at that moment. And only because of that mistake that I made, because of the karma that I did, I was then born in this state of a Naga for a long time. Never had the chance to practice any meditation or practice any Dhamma. But now, finally, I'm very happy to be able to meet the Buddha again, So the Buddha then related all this entire story to the monks. And he told them that there are actually 4 things in life which we have to realize that are difficult. And this is the Dhammapada verse.